Hey y'all, thank y'all for showing interest in the video. If you like it, please like and subscribe. Have a great rest of the day. Hello everyone, just checking in here at Cowans Ford here. My name is William Young, and we're here with Mr. Anthony Vorwald right here as a special guest. We are going to talk about the Battle of Cowans Ford. Now, one would think, oh, what an interesting spot here. There's a dam here and stuff, and electrical poles. A very, very unsuspecting place, as one would think. Now, if you actually knew the history behind this particular spot, you will actually be quite interested. Now, when I mentioned the name, the Battle of Cowans Ford, that would obviously spur some interest. Now, with that being said, this is the site of the Battle of Cowans Ford. So to begin, this was a battle considered more of a skirmish that was part of a string of events that occurred that was ultimately called the Race of the Dam. This particular battle was fought on February 1st of 1781. The Race of the Dam was a few river crossings and areas that the Patriots crossed and passed on the way to crossing the Dan River to escape General Cornwallis. Cowans Ford, Beatty's Ford, Salisbury, North Carolina, and a few other spots, and then crossed the Dan River with hardly enough time to spare. So those were a few spots that were crossed. The Race of the Dan started just after the Battle of Cowpens in what is now Gaffney, South Carolina, which was a huge, embarrassing defeat against the British. The Battle of Cowpens happened on January 17th, 1781. So after the Battle of Cowpens, General Daniel Morgan had to get moving before Cornwallis caught and took the British soldiers back that were prisoners and pummeled the Patriots. So he had to get moving before that happened. Anyways, so about the topic at hand, the Battle of Cowans Ford. So after the Battle of Cowans Ford, they started retreating and passing certain areas and places. As they were approaching Cowans Ford, it was unclear to the Patriots as to where General Cornwallis himself would cross the river. So Cornwallis's line of march indicated that he was probably going to cross at either Beatty's Ford or Cowans Ford. So the Patriots left General William Lee Davidson with a relatively small force to slow down Cornwallis. Knowing who the Patriots were dealing with, they figured Cornwallis would try to be sneaky, because the day before, Cornwallis sent a small bit of men to Beatty's Ford on January 31st. Davidson saw through the sneaky plan, thankfully, and moved most of his men to the lower crossing during the night at Cowans Ford, which surprised the British when they arrived on the west bank just before daybreak on February 1st. Now, at this time, the river was fairly wide, but the water level was swelled because of the recent rain. So just imagine the river here with higher water levels than what it is now, and of course without the dam there. Anyways, Cornwallis didn't waste time in ordering his men to cross the river. They just went right in with about 4 to a column. They used their bayonets and big sticks to steady themselves as they crossed. Unfortunately, when the Patriots finally realized the British were crossing, the British had already made pretty significant progress. The splashing water is what alerted the Patriots' sentries to the British crossing. So the sentries sounded the alarm and started firing. Davidson had deployed most of his men to the upper part of this section area right here, but was able to quickly respond and reposition the rest of his men. But by the time they arrived, the first British troops had already reached the shore, and cannons brought to the British front on the west bank had begun to pound the American defenses. Davidson ordered his men to fall back to the woods and dense undergrowth to regroup. But while trying to rally a particularly hesitant unit, a ball pierced his chest and he died instantly. With their general down, the Americans broke ranks and fled, turning the battle into a rout for the British. And that, my friends, is the Battle of Cowans Ford.
So, William, I have a question. So how was the terrain now compared to when it was in 1781?
Yes, the terrain was a little different than what it is now. The dam that you see there was not there, and the river was also a little bit wider in some spots and a little bit slimmer in some parts as well. But generally speaking, it was a little different than what you see now. So that had a pretty drastic effect as to what you see now, because they didn't have dams like that at that time, and the scope of the actual river was a little bit different, left and right of what you see now.
Interesting. So William, also my next question would be, are there any casualties buried in the general local area from that battle?
Yes, that I know of. General William Lee Davidson, the general who died during the battle, is buried in the local area, where he was ultimately, where the grave was ultimately moved. As far as where, I'm unsure, but I know that it was moved, but he was buried in the general area though.